It's time for Horsepower, Chrome, and Rust, the greatest automotive podcast in the known world, with Ron Foreman, Brady Wright, and Steve Johan. Let's find out what's going on this week. Oh, we know what's going on. We make it up every week. This is December 15th, 2020. It is the 166th, I think, episode of Horsepower, Chrome, and Rust. I'm saying I think because I think it's either 166 or 167. In any case,
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Well, I'm pretty right.
166.
We're glad to be here. Brady Wright, of course, Ron Foreman, the president and founder of the Rat Bastards Car Club, and our producer and, oh my gosh, keeper of all automotive data, Steve Johan. We have been doing this now for better than 3 years, and we are proud to say we're still in the top 10 of all the automotive podcasts on Podomatic, so that's kind of cool. We're on YouTube, iHeart, iTunes, and practically every place else, plus our Facebook page, and we really appreciate you folks listening, watching, and liking and sharing our pages because, yeah, it's kind of how we do this. Got a bunch of cool stuff coming up today. Steve has rooted through the source material that he usually finds by going to the back garbage can at Dick's Drive-In in Seattle.
Yes.
He has some really cool stuff about cars and our hobby today. We got, my friend.
Well, formerly known as Al's Auto Parts.
That's right.
And Shucks before that. So
That's right.
We've had a number of come-and-go auto parts stores, and now they're all gone, and, of course, it's just the big guys now left. I got a kind of a slow day in the news, but I've got some things I wanted to cover. Okay. And this is under the battery update, because we just love hearing more about the battery-operated cars.
It's my favorite thing in the world.
Oh, it is, too. Mercedes-Benz is getting ready to launch a major push into the electrification of their cars. The automaker has announced plans to have 6 all-electric battery-powered models in production by 2022. Including,
if I was going to do it this year.
Yeah, including 2 that will roll off its assembly line in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I'm thinking, now I may be wrong, but 2 models. So maybe 1 model with 2 options, and then 2 models with a couple options. So you know how they do a Sport Edition and XR Edition. And so maybe they have 2 platforms, but they're going to roll out and say, well, we've got this and we got that, and those are options.
The Sport model will be the baseline.
Yes.
That's going to be the bottom.
That's right.
A neat graphic on the side, but it has no other options.
That's right. So anyway, that's 2022, so that's 2 years from now. And then Fiat Chrysler Automobiles expanding its fleet of plug-in hybrids as it begins production of the electrified Jeep Wrangler. Yes, guys, electrified Jeep Wrangler.
Something wrong with that. You can't have a Jeep Wrangler electric.
But we've got our friend over at was it Zero that's doing the electrified retro Bronco. But it's cool, and it's a different animal, and he's
cool. I'll have to give it to him. When you're going to do something like that, it's like covering a song by Aerosmith.
Right.
You don't dare do it unless you're really going to commit and do a good job. And they did a pretty good job with that Bronco, I'll have to say.
I think so too.
Aerosmith covered a Beatles song. They did pretty good with that.
Yeah,
they did. They did. Yeah. And actually, Titans covered an Aerosmith song, and they did pretty good with it. So.
Well, there you go.
And then comes this from the heavy-duty truck industry. Heavy-duty trucks powered by fuel cells are being put to work hauling freight away from the port of Los Angeles as part of the test by Toyota Motor North America Research and Development and California Air Resources Board. All that is needed is to power these vehicles and so basically is they have some semi-trucks, tractor trailers that they're using to maneuver things around at the port as a test platform.
Oh, I see. They used to call those, back in the day, the truck, the little cabs that moved stuff around, they used to call them a pig.
Yep.
Yard goat.
Yeah.
Yard goat.
Yeah. The goats are the pigs, and those are the ones that they just used to move the containers around where they wanted them. They never took them out on the road. Most of them didn't have a back window, so they just reach out and hook up the brakes.
Well, this one says they're actually going to haul away the freight from the Port of Angeles. So it's actually going to be, but where they're going to take them to, that we don't know. But they're going to be testing them there. And then this got me thinking about the fact is there we've talked about this for 3 years plus since we've been on, and then prior to that I talked about it on the motorcycle show I produced, is battery technology is still what it is. And there is this huge influx of money coming into who's going to come up with the next greatest sliced bread idea. And the newest idea is solid state. So everybody's pouring money into the solid state. But we've seen this. A lot of investors jump in. They're looking for that next red herring. But it may be several years before it could be a decade.
Yeah.
And the hype.
The advantage of investing big in new technology is that if it works, you're going to get some of your money back. If you don't, you write it off. Either way, they're not going to lose, much.
And here's the thing: they get
not everybody's Elon Musk.
No, and even he got tremendous amounts of government subsidies, and these guys are all doing it. And then they can pile on and say, we are doing what the elites want us to do, which is to go green. Yes. Yeah. And it may take another 20, 30 years.
It would be better? We all just start walking.
Well, please, they want us to do that. Don't. You go to Seattle, that's what they want.
I ain't going to Seattle.
I don't. Neither am I.
You could invest in Earth shoes, and you'd be right up there. You and Frida Kahlo.
Boots. You better get some rubber boots because there's a lot of piles of stuff laying on the floor, laying on the ground down there.
Yeah.
Well, in a new released survey of 14 countries by Ford Motor Company, shows that 69% of the respondents feel overwhelmed by the changes taking place due to the worldwide government mandates to close down, mask up, and restrict travel. Now, I have added those little parts to myself. It states 53% find it difficult adapting to the changes, harder than most thought. With younger respondents feeling it more, with 63% of Gen Zers, I don't even know why they X, Y, Z, B, adapting has been harder than anticipated. Only 42% of boomers said they feel the same. And I suspect, that's because a lot of boomers have retirement funds and they're pulling money and they're not worried about getting a job and they don't have to hassle with a lot of things. But it also adds that another layer of worry to the industry already wrangling with increased cost of labor, freight, raw materials, which is they always wrangle about that. Not to mention the staggering cost of developing electric and autonomous vehicles, which is a huge amount of money, billions and billions and billions.
You know what I haven't seen in terms of math yet is how long it's going to take to break even based on all the development costs for all this technology. It's great stuff, but it's going to be a while before you actually realize an honest-to-gosh profit after amortizing off, all of the up and R&D and everything else. And that's really expensive stuff.
We had a fella on a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, that was an industry insider, and he kind of gave us some input as to some of that. And I'm going to look him up and bring him back on because it would be a great idea to say, hey, all this investment, because he said at that point,
I think. Greg, well, you can look it up.
Yeah, he was saying something about that they have a lot of cash reserves.
Yeah.
And that they can invest, and it is, like you said, a write-off. It's a lot of things to offset their profits. But it would be interesting to get his point of view because he's right there in, right into the crotch of the automotive industry. So, as in they're under your arm kind of thing there. So, it also meant
further away from the fly than the
yeah. Okay, the armpit. There we go. He's in the armpit of the industry. Okay, so here's the other thing. It also mentioned the uncertainty of whether consumers struggling to pay mortgages, because we know tens of millions of people are still out of work, will be able to pay their car loans. Thus, the idea of selling new cars is a challenge, has been, is now, and I think will continue to be for a period of time. So we're just seeing a trimming of that industry like we've seen the aerospace industry. And many anybody who's a mom and pop who runs a restaurant or a bar. Bars are dead. I mean, come on. So again, we're seeing what happens when social engineers get their way. Well, there's our music.
Hey, well, listen, we're going to talk about that and a whole bunch of other stuff. Thanks for tuning in. Coming up on the Windshield View, we got a legend in the car world. Stick with us. John Schneider's up next on Horsepower, Chrome, and Rust.
My mind's out of gear and my heart's in overdrive. I've everything to fear. I ain't never been more alive.
Horsepower Chrome and Rust is back with the first half of the Windshield View, and we have a very special guest, movie star and TV star John Schneider from Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh yeah, Bo Duke.
but now, I think stand on it. I think stand
I
on
think
it.
it's yeah.
You do think? I think it's kind of like saying, "Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Burt Reynolds from Gunsmoke."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Gunsmoke.
Yeah.
Hold my
Larry
beer.
From I Dream of Jeannie.
There you
Oh,
go. That's
geez,
scary.
yeah.
That is really.
Come
It's
on.
frightening because I'm old enough to remember that.
I love everything Dukes of Hazzard. I absolutely do.
What's not
But
to
I
like?
tell you what, making this movie and being one of those guys that saw Smokey and the Bandit no less than 50 times in the movie theater,
Easily, sure.
and now being the guy driving the triple black T-top. Well, in my case, it's a Hellcat Challenger, but I have made it.
It's so cool.
I have made it.
You have, and as I understand, you're actually friends. You were friends with Burt Reynolds. How did that happen?
He just got unlucky. Through that god awful movie they made in 2004 or 5, whenever it was.
Yeah.
But also, Burt was. If you go back to look at Hooper, The End.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Burt Reynolds and Jimmy Best were very, very good friends. Jimmy Best was in Gunsmoke a bunch of times with Burt.
Right.
So Burt was a true friend of the Dukes of Hazzard when he was the biggest star in the world.
Yeah.
So Burt and I became friends. Hal Needham, who wrote and directed Smokey and the Bandit,
Right,
was a very good friend of mine. We developed a couple of television shows, a couple of movies together. He did a series of movies called Bandit.
Yep.
It wasn't Burt, it was for television. And I played Sheriff Enright. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. You still got the voice there for that one.
I got the voice for Sheriff Enright. So I had a great time with Burt and also with Hal. And one of the things that they lamented, and one of the things I think Burt punched the director of the Dukes of Hazzard movie, was that people, I think so, yeah.
Wow.
Burt was a man of few words.
Awesome.
But people don't understand that there's a recipe to what Burt called Southern horsepower comedy.
Right.
Okay.
And really, Smokey and the Bandit and Gator and
White Lightning. White Lightning.
Yep. and Stroker Ace.
Yep.
Gumball Rally, or not Gumball Rally.
Cannonball.
Oh gosh.
Cannonball Run. Yeah.
Cannonball Rally. Cannonball
That's
Run.
the one.
Yep.
Dom
Cannonball Run.
DeLuise was his sidekick. He really
Oh my gosh.
they brought the new meaning to the comedy of those two guys with those movies. It was just amazing.
Well, it was just great. And way back when I did my first television special, Dom was on the television special.
Right.
Great guy. Dom DeLuise and his wife Carol were wonderful, wonderful people. Carol is still kicking. But even when I did the first time I did the Mike Douglas show, we were on the Delta Queen, and we stopped in Savannah, and Dom DeLuise played hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah. So it was I had a very interesting introduction into this whole Hollywood thing, but all of it was Southern horsepower comedy. The first talk show I did was Dinah Shore.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Right.
Southern Belle in her own right.
The Chevrolet.
Oh my God. And wonderful, wonderful Southern royalty.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
when we made Stand on It, we wanted to, there's idiots out there that are saying, well, we don't want to be called Lady Antebellum anymore. Oh, we don't want to be called the Dixie Chicks anymore. Because Dixie's a bad word. Screw that. Dixie is not a bad word.
Nope.
Well, and
Not at
antebellum
all.
either, for all the obvious reasons. If you have an education, it's
Well,
people are
yes,
a little bit
but
more
if you have
sensitive.
an education.
Well, I'm cursed with an education, so I'm no fun to talk about that stuff. It's funny you're talking about Burt and you're talking about the history of that particular genre of movie. I spent some years doing concert promoting back in the day, And I actually was lucky enough to have Jerry Reed come for a couple of shows.
Son!
Oh, absolutely. And I
Nice.
mean,
So good.
I'm not a singer by any means, but if pressed with the right amount of whiskey, I can do She Got the Gold Mine, He Got the Shaft, if I had to karaoke it. But Jerry told me a lot of stories about Bert. And so it's great to kind of get the full circle of all of that.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I back in the 80s when I was doing a lot of country music, the summertime festivals were big. So Jerry Reed and myself and Exile and Alabama and all these folks, Sawyer Brown, we were all out doing all these things. So I spent a bunch of time with Jerry.
Yeah.
And of course, all these folks were to include Johnny Cash, were not just little Dukes of Hazzard fans. They were like
huge
huge Dukes of Hazzard fans.
Well, you have William Jennings singing your intro, for crying out loud.
Just got up.
Yeah.
Yep.
And people don't remember perhaps that when 1978 there was no bigger music star of any kind in the world than Waylon Jennings.
That's right.
He had just shipped platinum with I've Always Been Crazy.
Right.
So when Dukes of Hazzard was ordered, it was ordered solely because Waylon Jennings agreed to not only do the theme song, but also to do the balladeer. Well, we don't know what the Duke boys are up to now, but so if it weren't for Waylon Jennings, Dukes of Hazzard would not exist.
Wow.
And so it was a remarkable time. And then to be able to call those gentlemen, I mean, I did Stagecoach. You remember Stagecoach?
Sure.
Me and Waylon and Willie and Johnny and Christopherson and Anthony Newley. I mean,
and that's an interesting pairing, Chris Christopherson and Anthony Newley.
Yeah.
Like, who would have known?
Both,
and yet,
two of the greatest singers of all time.
Yes.
and
songwriters.
But I was a huge Dr. Dolittle fan, not the Eddie Murphy Dr. Dolittle.
Right.
The Anthony Newley Dr.
Yes.
The Rex Harrison Dr. Dolittle. Yes. So I've lived this really remarkable life where I have gotten to be friends, I mean, real friends, with most of the people that were my heroes.
That's cool.
And now to be able to make this movie stand on it as a true tribute. I mean, I play me, and I get bet $500,000 that I can't do for real what my friend Burt Reynolds did for pretend in Smokey and the Bandit.
What a great concept.
I mean, my God.
That's awesome.
It's perfect. And
I think the stars have definitely lined up for you, John. That's amazing. That's really
they have, but you know what? You got to show up.
Yep.
That's true.
You've got to do the work. You know, you've got to
never quit.
Never quit. You absolutely. Right now, we're in a never quit world. And you have got to. They say that success is when preparation meets opportunity.
There you go.
But you know how many people that I've met who wouldn't recognize opportunity if you handed it to them. And many times I'll hand opportunity to people because I think that's one of the things requirements when you've achieved anything in life. I think you have a responsibility to share it.
Well, we really appreciate this opportunity to share this with you, John. This is really cool that you do this. Thank you very, very much.
I love it. That's your way of saying we need to go to commercial, right?
Yeah.
Very subtle. Yeah. Steve is the most subtle producer on the planet. Sometimes
that's great. I'd love to tell you more, but let's sell some stuff.
Like we could do that, yeah. Clearly, we have to pay the rent because these studios
pay the rent. And by the way, go to johnschneiderstudios.com.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just paid mine.
Yeah, nice. John Schneider Studios, and we're going to talk a lot about that on the other side of the break. And so hang with us. We got more of the show with John Schneider.
Unforgiven poster.
Yep.
The Windshield View will be right back with more of with John Schneider and the Horsepower Chrome and Rust. Stick around.
Back in vehicle
Yes, you are, and you're listening to the greatest automotive information world in the known world. And we have John Schneider on with us, and we were just talking a little bit about Stand On It on the other side. So, John, why don't you pick up, and we did talk about your studio, but tell us what made you want to do the Stand On It movie?
Well, one of the reasons why I wanted to do Stand On It is that I owe a lot to my love of Burt Reynolds and Hooper and Gator and Sharky's Machine and Smokey and the Bandit. I was a huge Burt Reynolds fan, and then Burt Reynolds became a friend of mine, and I became a bigger fan. Because he was a great guy. And folks, if you're a Burt Reynolds fan and you haven't seen the last movie Burt made, The Last Movie Star, you must see it. You must see it.
I agree.
Before you see Stand On It, I want you to see that movie. It is phenomenal. So in the last couple of years, the whole notion of the South has kind of taken a hit.
Yep.
And it offends me.
A little tarnish there. Undeserved tarnish.
Undeserved, tarnished. Yeah. So starting with, of course, the Dukes of Hazzard is a racist show because of the flag on the car. Well, no. I have a shirt that says, if this flag offends you, then you need an education.
Yep.
So, and I'm from New York. Okay, so I'm not this diehard Dixie guy who is fighting for his great-grandfather. I am a recovering Yankee who has been embraced by the South, who embraces the South, who chooses to call it the War of Northern Aggression.
Yep.
What an artist's way of saying that. That's awesome. Very cool.
So the more I learn about what we call the Civil War, the more I want to call it the War of Northern Aggression. But in any event, people have dropped the ball of Southern horsepower comedy. I can't remember the last one other than the last Cannonball Run, or maybe I was in one with John Candy called Speed Zone.
Sure.
That was 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's something about a guy. I mean, I race dirt track now. I mean, honestly, truly race open wheel modified dirt track cars at 60. So there's something about a guy in a car. Wait, listen. Okay.
There you are.
Something about a guy in a car that can drive like nobody's business, that can make the silly police officers look even sillier.
Right.
There's some wonderful recipe there that people have missed. And Burt Reynolds himself and Hal Needham himself said, the three of us are really the only people that care and know how to make these kind of movies.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're gone, John, please continue to make these kind of movies. So that's what we're doing.
It's the most amazing thing about all of what you just said is that a story like that, while the part of you that's, logical and practical goes, nah, maybe not, you go to a movie to suspend belief for a moment and take a ride that somebody gives you. And that kind of ride is what so many of us grew up with.
Yep.
Of course, you're not necessarily going to go out, and yet you could. But that whole silly cop going fast, doing stuff dangerous, all of that is the essence of entertainment. And Southern horsepower comedies, like you say, we miss them. We miss them, and that's why. By the way,
there's
Southern horsepower just for half a second here. We have noticed during the segment that you're sitting in what appears to be a car. Does this is not a normal studio for you? I see a suspicious-looking logo on the steering wheel, and you revved it a minute ago. Where are you, John?
I am sitting outside a restaurant. My wife and our friends are inside eating dinner.
Oh.
And I am sitting in the car. Here, look, there it is.
There's that's perfect.
I'm sitting in Hammond, Louisiana,
All right.
outside the restaurant
Very nice.
in a 2020 red badass, pardon me, Corvette.
Oh, no.
Awesome.
Nice.
Of course.
Very nice.
It is. Boy, did they get everything right when they made this car.
Well, they kind of did.
My
Yeah,
God.
yeah. I'll tell you how
They-
right they got it. I have a friend who was a big supporter of the Porsche Motor Club. He was a big guy. He's a competition driving instructor, and he was a Porsche guy forever until that car came out, and he sold his Porsches to get.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, here's something nobody knows. The first car that the guy who played Bo Duke bought when he could afford it, the first new car I ever had was a 1979 Porsche 911 SC.
Oh, there you go. And as nice as that car was,
I'm in a nicer car.
Yeah,
I'm in a nicer car.
So, John, I wanted to ask.
Oh my God! Here.
I wanted to ask you, because we could go on about the car, but I wanted to ask you about your John Schneider studios. How many acres of land do you have there, and how did you build that up?
They're quite the showplace there, aren't you?
We have 158 acres. And
Wow.
Some of it used to be a YMCA camp, like in the 1940s. It was a YMCA camp.
Oh, okay.
And then in the and all the way through 1985, I think it was YMCA. So it's got a huge pool that was for 150 kids, and
Wow.
But it's on a river with a lake, with a swamp, with a bamboo forest. It has a bunch of dirt roads and a couple of wonderful old Louisiana homes on it. So we use it when you watch Stand on It. When I pick up Cody McCarver, Frosty, not the snowman. When I pick up Cody McCarver, it's right in front of what was my mother's house, which is at the studio.
Got it.
Yeah, so we film as much as we possibly can right there at the studio. When we do our big event every year, it's called Bo's Extravaganza. And you'll remember that in the beginning and ending of Smokey and the Bandit was at the fairgrounds.
Right.
So our movie begins and ends at Bo's Extravaganza, which is right there at our studio. So we're totally independent. We make our movies, we make our music, we also distribute it, which is important because a lot of people say, "Oh, can I watch Stand on It on Netflix?" The answer is no, because making movies isn't cheap.
Right.
So
All right.
when you watch Stand on It, you have to go to cineflixdod.com because that's our very own. We own that streaming platform. So when somebody spends $5.99 and rents a movie, we know that we make probably $4.99.
Nice.
When you are a member of Netflix, and I love Netflix from a consumer standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
but I can watch every movie ever made in the history of cinema for $9.99 a month. Now, as a consumer, that's great, but as a filmmaker,
Right.
you know what?
That's
what
a little
part
thin.
of that? It's a little thin.
A little thin.
So we all do this so that we can do it again.
Sure.
Right on.
Smokey and the Bandit was made in 1976. It cost $3 million to make, and by 1978, it had grossed $360 million.
Yeah.
Nice.
Second only, and people need to know this. This is the power of horsepower comedy, Southern horsepower comedy. Second only to Star Wars.
I was going to say Star Wars was 77,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yep.
And there you were. And look at how much
And
that place
Star
cost.
Wars, and Star Wars cost a bunch of money, but still it was a labor of love.
Sure.
Star Wars was basically Spielberg's. It was an independent movie paid for by Universal.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. And Smokey and the Bandit was an independent movie paid for by Universal. We are independent movies paid for by us.
Yeah.
So folks, when you go and you rent Stand on It, or you rent Christmas cars, or you buy Stand on It, or you buy Christmas cars, I tell you, we appreciate it.
Nice.
Well, yeah.
We know who we work for.
We'll put a link in the show
Absolutely.
and all that stuff for
We
you.
appreciate you, John. That's awesome.
No
Well,
kidding.
thank you. Thank you. Well,
Speaking of
and Stand On It, one quick thing. Stand
Yeah.
On It has so much to do with our truck drivers. Our drivers,
Yeah.
Oh,
out there,
yes.
the folks who have kept the country rolling. We've got a couple songs in the movie. One is called Stand On It, but another one is called Truck On.
Oh.
Truck on, truck, and the chorus is so great. Highway heroes, 18 wheels, keep moving on while the world stands still. Hey, Breaker 19, you got the Rolling Stone.
Nice.
Truck on, truck on, truck on.
That's
Very
good stuff.
cool.
And so we love our truck drivers. We love our CDL
Absolutely.
license holders. And the movie is as much about trucking because Cody McCarver has a great line in the movie. He says, the truck has to get there too. It's really all about the truck. Which is true because the truck is where the beer is. There's not a can of beer
the
in
truck
my
is the
car.
road.
It's all in the truck.
Yeah,
That's right.
no kidding. And speaking of cars, now we have this rumor. Are you not commissioning a new version of the General Lee? Did I hear that right?
Well, we have a new version of the General Lee that I'm using as a dirt track car.
Oh.
Okay, that's what it was.
We are building a new dirt track car that is a General Lee.
Got it. Okay.
So you can see that. But we are also talking to many of our aftermarket fabricator friends about how to make it possible for anyone who owns a 2016 and above Challenger to be able to make a reproduction of our Hellcat Challenger that we have in stand.
Oh, sure.
Oh, cool.
So you do a wrap or something? Is that kind of the?
Well, no. It's the biggest part is the T-top.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing we have to wrap our minds around is the headliner and the T-top because there are airbags in the headliner of a Challenger.
Right.
So we're trying to figure that out. It's basically a triple black car.
Yeah.
And you have to do the pinstriping because my father-in-law and I did the pinstriping. We have the bird available, but the T-top, we've got to figure out how to exactly do that so that people can have the same car. One of the great things about the General Lee is that they're certainly more expensive now, but when the show was on, people could go and they could buy a Charger for $2,500, $3,000, and they could make a General Lee.
Yeah, you could do it on the menu, basically.
Yeah. So every time I saw a General Lee that someone had made, I knew that it was a dad and a grandpa and a son, and it was a family affair.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you're invested. You have hours invested in your stand on it car or in your General Lee. So we're trying to make that work. We're trying to wrap our heads around that because I'm a gearhead. So
yeah, well, and we all are. I mean, I don't know if you can see what's behind Ron, but his car club is all about it's not what you buy, it's what you build.
I love that. I love that.
Remember, that's us.
If it don't go, chrome it.
That's right. Get you home, and the rest of that line.
So, John, one of the things, not only have you been an actor and a gearhead, but you're also a producer and director and all that. But you're also a musician, and you just got off the road doing several concerts. We've got a couple minutes left, about a minute. Just briefly, how did that go, and where did you play?
Well, it went great. We started in Guin, Alabama, at a drive-in theater. So what we've done is Keith Burns from Trick Pony, Cody McCarver from Confederate Railroad, and myself. We do a 90-minute set. It's basically Southern rock, but it's new. It's all new stuff. And the music that I do currently is music that we put in Stand On It.
Nice.
So it's a 90-minute concert, a 10-minute break for popcorn in the bathroom, and then bam, we're going down the road with what is fast becoming. I mean, now it's in theaters. There aren't very many theaters open, but drive-ins are calling us, and the few theaters that are open say, we got no content from Hollywood. Can we please show stand-up?
Oh, awesome.
And,
that's great.
That's very cool.
Happening. So we hit a home run. We did.
Well, you know what?
We love it. Out of time, right?
Well, and what's so cool about that, John, is that's where a lot of us saw that movie, was sitting in a drive-in theater.
Yeah,
I did. I mean, I was at the Sammamish Twins up there in Bellingham, Washington, and
I love Bellingham. I used to fly into there to drive to Vancouver.
There you go.
yeah, that'll be another show we'll get you on because I grew up in Ferndale, which is right between Bellingham and Vancouver.
Oh, there we go. Well, I did that when I did Smallville. So
There you go.
so drive-ins are back. We're going to build a drive-in at our studio.
Awesome.
We're doing that very soon, like in January 1st. We're going to have a drive-in there. So we'll be showing Stand On It and Christmas cars. And folks, again, JohnSchneiderStudios.com if you want to buy the DVD. CineflixDOD.com. We call it digital on demand because it's digital. Hollywood calls it video. It hasn't been
like
video in decades.
Nice.
Decades.
Decades.
We're
Well,
gonna put those links on the page for sure. John, we really want to thank you for being a part of the show. Go back in and have a drink on us and tell your wife hello and tell her you didn't use
Definitely.
her new car.
Tell her Rat Bastard Ron said hi. Stick around.
Now we're talking.
You all take care. Thank you so very much. And I will see you,
All right,
as we
John.
say in Louisiana, down the road.
Down the road,
hey,
indeed.
thank you, John.
Thank you, son.
You have a great day.
Machine gonna blow the scene, 'cause trouble makes rubble like you never seen. My motor screams, gasoline.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, it's time for Cars Confidential.
Oh, yeah.
And
I bet you Ron's got a car that spits gasoline.
It does.
You got a car that spits
I know it's
gasoline?
It eats
Oh,
gasoline.
man.
I don't know about spitting.
so we're going to hear another story from Lance Lambert.
Yeah, we are.
Fenders, Fins, and Friends.
Fenders, Fins, and Friends, not grins, gears, and gasoline this time.
Ooh.
Narrated
one-
by
actually-
Brady Wright.
Well, I picked this story because of you, Ron. Because I know you would appreciate this, being the fan that you are. This
I
one
just
is
watched
called,
the Tales of the Rat thing just the other day.
Oh,
by
did you?
Ed Roth.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Okay. Well, this one is called Roth's Wrath.
Awesome.
And anybody who has an appreciation for old cars in the hobby, of course, knows the name Ed Roth. Big Daddy Roth was a prolific artist. He was a custom car guy. He was a motorcycle builder, a model car designer, automotive entrepreneur, painter, pinstriper. He did all of that kind of stuff. I mean, he definitely was, and he remains an icon for the whole hobby of old cars. I wouldn't be too far off if I suggested that Ron might actually have a tattoo of the Rat Fink somewhere on his body.
You can see it, but it's right there.
There it is.
So we went to the
Oh.
Rat Fink reunion 2 years ago. That
Yeah.
was really cool. Trixie Roth, his
Yep.
wife, his widow
Yep.
was there, and it was really a good time.
Yeah. Well, Ed, of course, passed away in 2001, but he's got a
Mhm.
huge, enduring icon that's,
Big following.
The
Get
Rat
it? Big.
of course.
Well, just like Burt Reynolds, and we were talking with John in the
Yeah.
last segment about the Southern Fried horsepower
Horsepower
and
comedies.
shows and comedies.
So
And,
Rat
and
Fink is a really
Yeah.
big, really unkempt rat that Ed drew on shirts. He sold them at car shows and by mail order and stuff, starting about in the late 50s. And I think I was probably 7 or 8 when I first saw the Rat Fink, and I immediately thought it was pretty cool. It always had flies flying around his head and drops of sweat, flying off. Having a Rat Fink T-shirt was really pretty cool. It was like a big deal back then, and thousands of Rat Fink shirts are still sold every year.
He started the T-shirt craze with
he
the.
did and
with the Rat
airbrushed.
Fink
You
on
used to be able to
T-shirts. Yep.
Get them airbrush shirts.
Yep.
And when I was 12, I had just enough artistic talent to do a rendering of the Rat Fink that was recognizable now, by no means anywhere close to Roth's stuff. Ed was capable of, amazing, but it was close enough to provide my 12-year-old hands with a way to creative, kind of a little bit of spending money. So the kids in my neighborhood would bring me their T-shirts and sweatshirts, and I would use a marking pen to draw Rat Fink on the backs of the shirts. This is Lance now. I want to make sure that we're aware this is Lance. Mr. Fink always had his eyes bulging out, his sharp and crooked teeth gleaming, and several flies buzzing around his head. I'd draw the rat, and then I'd spray it with yellow and orange and green fluorescent spray paint. The fee for my effort was 50 cents, and at the time, that was a significant amount of money for a 12-year-old to have in his pocket. So I continued this flagrant plagiarism until a lot of kids in the neighborhood were adorned with Rat Fink attire, and the demand for the shirts then sort of declined. So I changed careers and did what every young boy in my neighborhood did to make money. I got a paper route. It was the end of my Rat Fink rendering career, but not the end of my Ed Roth admiration. Decades passed, and then in August of '93, my brother Jay and I were in Reno, Nevada, attending Hot August Nights. Now, this is one of the largest hot rod and custom car events in the world, and usually about 5,000 cars attend. It's approximately a week long. It includes every imaginable thing related to the old car hobby, famous custom car builders, custom creators of cars from the 50s and 60s, and current stuff that, kind of emulate that kind of stuff. So this particular year included a personal appearance by Ed Big Daddy Roth himself. Ed always drew large crowds of fans, and I became just another person seeking a little of his time. I had no idea that he was going to threaten me.
Oh, no.
I had seen him talking to some fans, so I walked up, hovered nearby, and finally introduced myself. To illustrate my admiration and respect for his talents, I decided to share the story of my past efforts to copy his style on the neighborhood kids' shirts. I didn't expect the reaction that resulted. Ed was a very large man, not unlike the Ratfink himself, and he tended to kind of tower above the people around him. And upon hearing my story, he put his hand on my shoulder, leaned over, nearly touched my nose with his as he uttered, "Well, son, then I guess you owe me some money."
Yep.
He paused just long enough for me to begin sweating like Ratfink, and then he began laughing. I joined in the laughter because I wanted some of his artwork, and I felt I did owe him some money. I purchased a drawing of another of his cartoon characters, and I asked him to autograph it. Now, he's been gone for more than a decade now, but you'd never know it. His talents continue to appear in various automotive and graphic design publications. His cars are still featured in car shows and museums, and best of all, you can still purchase a T-shirt with the grimy and crusty old Ratfink on it. Ed, like Elvis, is still successful even after his demise. And if you don't want to buy a T-shirt, you can just go to any car show where Ron Foreman happens to be and take a picture of his arm.
Look at that.
He's got the Surf Fink.
Yeah.
Is that a Revell model? It is a Revell model. Look at that. Look at you. There he is. There he is.
That's just close to me. I've got so much.
Oh,
I
sure.
have so much.
I mean, everybody. I think everybody, with the possible exception of the classic resto guys, probably has something with the Ratfink on it, or one of those drawings. Trosley does that kind of stuff, but he never really got to where Ratfink was.
I remember going to the IGA in Renton up on the Benson Hill there.
Okay.
And they had a coin op machine. You put a quarter in, or a dime, or a nickel. And I think it was a dime, and I got a Ratfink ring, and I still have that ring. I still have that ring in a jewelry box put away.
Oh,
but
yeah.
RF is my initial, so I've been Ratfink all my life. Forever.
Ron, that is very interesting. You're like me. I've got my Hot Wheels from all my Hot Wheels. I got my Forzetta posters up here. I've got all the stuff that when I was a kid, I stashed it away. My parents did. And then I took it. And then now with my office, I get to put some of this up on the walls and in here and in the various things. And you're the same way. You've got your garage. You probably have your little do you have a room where you have all your memorabilia, Ron?
Now my car is the room full of memorabilia right now.
Now, if John Schneider can do a show from his car, you should do the next one sitting in your car.
I can do that.
You could see that way. We could see the Foreman mobile, the Rat Bastard mobile.
There you go.
And I'm pretty sure. I know you've got a Von Dutch eyeball in your car.
Oh,
but you got some Ratfink stuff there too. That'd be all right. It'd be fun.
Well, the whole we were talking about with John the whole 70s into the 80s.
Yeah.
Southern fried movies, basically. I mean, literally. Yeah. I mean, it starts out in the early 70s, and then it kind of progressed all the way through the comedies that came out and through the 80s. And then you think about the same thing with Big Daddy Roth, all of his models, and you think that was in the late 50s through the 60s, the beach
70s.
Movies, and then the craze of all the cards and the bubblegum stickers and stuff. Yep. And we got all those. I drew pictures of those things, and the Cartoons magazine that was out there. So and then the Hot Wheels.
Between all of that, between the Cartoons magazines, Big Daddy Roth, the car.
It was an era.
The bubble cars that he's got, and Wolfman Jack. I mean, you've essentially got the 50s and 60s. That's it.
And
you
into
almost smell it.
Yes, you do. Yeah, you really do.
When we were listening to John, he was talking about, you got kind of sentimental about the cars and being a young man and growing up and with Burt Reynolds and the things that he experienced with Burt Reynolds. And I kind of related with my cars. When I get into my car, it's like a time machine.
Yeah.
I get into that car that I built with my own two hands, I put the key in ignition, and I started up, and I'm 16 with my learner's permit all over again, with my dreams running through my head of building my car. And and that's the kind of the feeling that I got when I was listening to John talking about his passion for being a car guy from New York and moving to the South. He's like a transplant. And it's just amazing the similarities of how he was expressing how he felt about being a car guy, like the rest of us, with horsepower, chrome, and rust.
Sure. And that's where the El Camino. When I'm working on my garage right now, I'm cleaning it up, I'm organizing it, I'm making it set ready, and when I get that El Camino completely done the way I want it, when I get in there and I power that on, I'm back in 1970s with my buddies in their cars.
What's going to change your life? Getting it finished is going to be a thing, no doubt. But what's actually going to change your life is when you start taking it apart and you actually make that project real. That's what, because you're going to go,
oh, I am.
Right,
you're going to turn your dream into a reality is what's going to happen. It's going to be a transformation.
You'll sit in the garage and you'll look around at the pieces sitting there and go, okay, now I see I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and I can do this before I do that.
The ideas start running rampant.
Yeah.
The ideas start running.
There we go.
Help us if you can. You're an El Camino man. Only you can understand.
It is. It's El Camino man. You should get a cape. I think you need a cape and a big E on your El Camino man.
Oh.
Hey, this is Around the Wheel. This is Ron's going to do that. He's going to bring you a cape. This is where we usually talk about upcoming events and the Nathan Lipinski Automotive Weekly Trivia question, of course, and whatever else we can think of to finish up the show. I do know that last week we had a pretty good response on the trivia question. It wasn't really a complicated question, but it was a little bit tricky. What we said was in 1953, Harley Earl was responsible for the concept car for the Corvette. Of course, it became a reality, and it was iconic because it was the first one of those. And Harley, of course, was a GM designer of some repute. He did some other stuff back then. What else? My question was, what else happened in '53 that was iconic for GM? And the answer that we were looking for, I got a bunch of answers off of Facebook, a really good ton of them.
That's cool.
Yeah, but the one I was looking for, Harley did several concept cars. Along in '54, he did the Olds F88 concept, which was kind of Olds' version of the Corvette. It never made it to production. He also did one for Buick. Again, same thing. And that was kind of where I was headed. We got some answers that were close, but nobody actually hit the bell. So no worries. It's kind of just a fun thing anyway. I do encourage you to go do a Google search for Harley Earl concept cars 1950s, and you'll find a bunch of them. The pictures are just awesome. And it makes you kind of wish, it'd kind of be cool if he had gotten some of those things, but GM wasn't going to play. The Corvette was flying, and that's what they wanted to do. The question for this week is a little bit more obscure, but it's going to be fun. In 1911, what Swiss engineer built his first car in America with financing from the Durant company? Now, Durant is long gone, but in 1911, there was a Durant automobile, and it was pretty well known. And that guy, Mr. Durant, financed a Swiss engineer to build another car, his very first car in America. And if you know which car that is, you can contact us at horsepowerchromeandrust.com. You can send us a Facebook message. You can get on the Instagram and hit us that way. Go to the YouTube channel, and while you're there, make sure you like and share, and you can answer it on the YouTube channel. It's all good. We don't care. But if you happen to know 1911, what Swiss engineer built his first car in America with financing from the Durant company? That's our trivia question for this week. And next week, we will know the answer. By the way,
go ahead.
Next week, we have a special Christmas edition of the show, and I feel like I should tell you what it is. Our most popular show that we have ever produced is the true story, the entire story of the Hot Rod Lincoln. Everybody's heard the song. Any car guy with any, experience at all knows about the whole idea of the Hot Rod Lincoln. We actually have David Dickinson, who writes the old car nut books. He managed to put together the story of how that car was actually produced and what happened. And we have two versions of that story.
We'll see which one it is.
Run one of them next week. So stay with us and make sure you enjoy that one. That's going to be cool.
Well, and what was really interesting is when you think about the Hot Rod Lincoln, and that dates back to the 50s, wasn't that when it came out in the 50s? Yeah. Again, that's a piece of Americana. A lot of generation that is going away remembers that. My kids don't remember any of that. That's not for them. But if they listen to this,
even the Commander Cody remakes were in the 60s and 70s. I mean, that's
70s. Yep.
40, 50 years ago now. So yeah, it's unless you're into that kind of music, you might not know the story. And yet, almost every car guy knows the story.
Oh, he put a Lincoln in a Model A.
Yeah, a V12 in a Model A.
So I have a Model A. I have a Model A.
Yeah.
And if I could afford a V12,
hey, there was one. There was one on Facebook. One of the, buy and sell things.
Sure.
It was on there for like $5,000.
What?
Yeah,
how about
I'll send you the link.
How about a Viper? How about a Viper motor? V10.
I don't know about a Viper, but a V12 would be very cool. And
the nostalgia of the V12, that would be cool.
Hey, so the Horsepower Chrome and Rust Facebook page is going to have a full color picture of whoever wins the trivia question, next week. We reach over 1 million car enthusiasts every week. Thanks so much for listening. For Ron Foreman and Steve Johan, I'm still Brady Wright saying keep your eyes on the road, your hands on the wheel, your foot on the floor. We'll be back next week with another Horsepower Chrome and